Good evening, viewers. Thanks for joining us tonight. Put your pot of tea on or feel free to grab your favorite snack. At Ripple Effects, timing isn't really our first concern. More or less, it's communicating, talking, engaging. So that's what tonight's broadcast is about, as usual. 7:30 gives the People's Platform a chance for anyone to come forward about anything. Whatever you would like to bring to the table. The number is 902, and I'm sure you can see it below in the platform. I'm not sure if I have that there. I'll put it up. But the number is 902-305-7833. And what you can do is you can suggest a topic. You can text that number, suggest a topic, and we can bring you on air, or you can just suggest to bring it to the table. So again, that number is 902-305-7833. At 8 o'clock tonight, we have local MP Mike Kelloway coming on. Mike's been coming on, very grateful. He's been coming on every Monday for the past 6 weeks, giving us updates, accurate information as to resources and new grants that have been made available. Let's do a sound check and make sure that you guys can hear me okay. That way you can leave your phone on if you choose and come and go as you please. Hello, Wayne Puro. Hello, Darlene McCarthy. Hello, Ray Guthrow. Thank you for joining us this evening. And we hope that you stay with us because it's always interesting to have the perspective of viewers from all around the globe. So we've had many viewers join us from everywhere in the last few weeks, especially anxiously waiting to hear on a few topics in Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, but in Atlantic Canada. It's a very unique place. And as we all know, Nova Scotia has been under extreme stress. And yet there's a glimmer of hope that as true Eastern people are known for, we will somehow rise again and come out of this together stronger. And what it's doing, as Mike brought out last week, is it's bringing new skills to the table that so I know I've been forced to learn so many new things lately. And I'm really grateful to all the families and fishermen that have been educating me on Lobster 101. It's been very interesting to say the least. So I want to thank you right off the hop. Hello, Josephine Kennedy. How are you doing this tonight? All right. So let's kick this off, because I always like referring to an article that has the better verbiage than I do. As was stated in Global News, Fisheries in Atlantic Canada, for those of you that are tuning in tonight and may not possibly be from Atlantic Canada, there seems to be a real kind of a public, not our fault, but a public ignorance of lobster fishermen. The seafood industry, as what I'm noticing over the past few weeks of talking to so many people, is they've been running this ship pretty much independently. And the public, there's such a communication gap with how much work is involved daily to be a lobster fisherman and get in your quota, get in your living for the whole year in a matter of 8 weeks in Atlantic Canada, no less. So it's been extremely educating for me to come on this journey and learn about the life of a fisherman. And then to add on to that, additionally, would be the fact that every different zone, okay, now get this, viewers, in every different zone, different things matter that not necessarily, matter to another zone. That sounds horrible the way I'm saying it, but it could be weather. It could be, exactly where they are. Like, there's so many different elements that come into play. It's really creating such an intriguing documentary we're doing to follow, to watch this. Anyway. So Fisheries in Atlantic Canada, they're anxious as they await federal aid package. And this was put out on May the 6th. The lobster gear sits on the dock as fishermen prepare for the opening of the valuable lobster season in Nova Scotia. With many spring fisheries just underway or about to start, groups representing fishermen in Atlantic Canada are looking for direct federal assistance that will help them ride out uncertain markets during the year. Federal Fisheries Minister Bernadette Jordan has said the announcement of an aid package is, quote, days away, and it would follow the 62.5 million announced last month to help fish and seafood processors protect workers from COVID-19. So last month there was a funding put out. It was 62.5 million, but this did not include the harvesters. So that's led to a lot of confusion out in the public. Ian McPherson, executive director of the 1,270 member PEI Fishermen's Association, said Wednesday that fishermen are looking for programs that will help stabilize operations this year and enable the industry to gain a more solid footing in 2021. You got to remember, folks, I mean, as I'm reading this, you might, I'd be one of those people too that kind of scoffed and said, okay, well, that's really sad. I really hope something comes for them. And we don't even consume lobster on a daily basis. I mean, when I go out grocery shopping, lobster is not on my grocery list, right? It's not one of those essential food items. I mean, I'm a mother, 5 kids. What's on my food list is the basic necessities, especially during this time. So, forgetting my point. What was my point to that? My point is that, this is not something I would necessarily kind of keep up on and realize the different logistics going into this. Anyway, okay, I'll keep on going. Quote, people are understanding that this is an unprecedented situation and it's going to be a challenging situation, McPherson said in an interview. I know what my point is now. My point is that even if you don't consume seafood, right? I mean, my partner does not consume seafood. It's not his favorite item. If the lobster harvesters in your area, in your community, especially in East Coast Canada, if they can't recover from this, that in turn affects the community and villages within quite a large radius, because that's money coming into the community and going out of the community. That's, so there's a lot that's got to be said, even if you're not, like I said, a lobster seafood consumer person, there's something that's got to be said. Anyway, let's keep on going. At the end of the day, people want to be able to make it to 2021, cover their costs and their key expenses. Jane Deeks. Okay, so Jane is who I've been speaking with the past couple days. Jane Deeks is the spokeswoman in Jordan's office. And she said, quote, we will have more to say on this matter soon, but did not offer any details. Quote, we recognize that fish and seafood harvesters are facing real challenges and have serious financial concerns as a result of COVID-19. Who isn't having serious concerns right now, right? I mean, it's unbelievable the different levels of concerns that's now starting to pop up in so many different specific areas, fields, professions. Tonight, Mike Kelloway, we're going to be talking about frontline workers. It's not that simple. It's not like there was a grant rolled out and everyone just gets a big fat paycheck. This is not, what's happening. What's happening is daily there is updates that concern people in different areas, different fields. Okay, quote, back to the article. We recognize that fish and seafood harvesters are facing real challenges. Oh, I read that part. The minister, along with her cabinet colleagues, are working on measures which will help ensure harvesters get the support they need during this time. What does that mean? We don't know what that's going to mean. We don't know, because it's been a daily update, right? What we do know, hello, Hilda. Hi, Hilda. What we do know, though, is that the fishermen in each zone have been putting forth quite a concerted effort to communicate to. So here's an interesting thing I found. I'm going to go back to the article. As a fisherman, this is how the structure works. I'm interested in the structure, being in business. So as a fisherman, you would respond to your port rep of all the zones that are in your area. And then they would report to the Fishing Association, which in Nova Scotia, there is 6. My understanding is there's 6, that's a lot. And then those 6 associations, fishing associations, would then respond or reply on behalf of the port reps and the fishermen. Then they would respond to the DFO. And then DFO responds to the minister, the scientists on the board, everyone else that's involved collectively. Okay, so that was really neat for me to learn and find out. Like, I wanted to know, how do all these fishermen stay on the same track? How do they communicate what they truly want? Well, how does the communication of all these different fishermen of all different ages, might I add, and all different varying logistics? I mean, a lot of older fishermen have what's called a heritage license, where they, it was grandfathered in, it came into their family, it's their livelihood. These guys, I mean, it's something else to understand what's going into this. So anyway, there's all different things to think of, and that's how they respond in the line of communication. We recognize, okay, so back to the article, McPherson said fishermen in the lucrative lobster industry, in particular, are anxious with their delayed spring season about to start on May 15th and run until June 30th. Okay, so why would that be an issue? Let's go see what the viewers are saying. Darren LeBlanc, hello. Charlene Nash Hunter, hi all. Corey Kalo from Edmonton, praying for all lobster fishermen to be safe during the lobster season. May your traps always be full, the weather be accommodating, and your health strong. Wow, that's lovely thoughts, Corey Kalo from Edmonton. The start of the season in areas of the Gulf of the St. Lawrence and the Northumberland Strait comes at a time when such markets are only now starting to open back up. Quote, I don't think anybody's being overly optimistic on the time it might take. Now, with 3 or 4 fishermen starting all on the same day, there is some concern about the amount of lobster coming in. Okay, so what do they mean by that? So I found out, I asked Dwayne Boudreau what that meant. Market, I keep on hearing the term market glut, market surplus. So what the harvesters are concerned about is some zones opened up, got started on May the 1st, just like every year, right? May the 1st, right? I'm in an area, I'm in Ile Madame, looking out my office window right now, right? And I see the lobster float things, buoys all over the water. But then there were other zones that were supposed to open on May the 1st, as usual. And the first 2 weeks, my understanding is like the most potent ones. That's where the majority of the income is made. That's where the fishermen really go to town on the first 2 weeks. Well, they were delayed. So you can imagine the kind of stress and anxiety this is causing for the fishermen in other areas. Josephine Kennedy, 3,200 boats setting traps on May the 15th. Exactly. So then what the fishermen are concerned about at this stage is, okay, wait a second. 3,200 boats are going to be released at the same time, literally in what is that, Josephine? 4 more days? I can't see my calendar. 3 more days? 4 more days. 4 more days. 3,200 boats are going to hit the ocean. And so now what is that going to do to the price of lobster, right? These guys get 8 weeks, if they're lucky, to make their living for the entire year and pay their deckhand, their crew. That's all they get. So they have to make sure every single day counts for something. And so intriguing to me, because I mean, we're in Nova Scotia, we're in the East Coast Canada. I mean, income, these guys are legit, really concerned and anxious. So they're waiting. Certain zones are waiting desperately to hear, okay, on the 15th, what's going to happen? What does happen? What choices do I have? What options am I going to have? Do I have to go fishing? I'm concerned about the safety. I mean, these are just concerns that are coming up. I'm concerned about the safety. Can we keep a safe distance on a boat, 6 feet apart, right? Visually imagine that, trying to keep 6 feet apart. Do you have to? What's going to be the safety precautions? What are we going to be in line with what each province is putting out? If there's a market surplus, what is that going to do when we get down to the wharf? What is that going to do? And why are buyers telling us what they're going to pay us? Why are we not setting, somebody used the analogy today of going to get groceries and going through the till and telling the cashier, well, this is how much I'm going to pay for my groceries, and that's it. So the fishermen have likened it to that. How come they're going down to the wharf and being told what the buyers are going to pay? Why are they not setting their own price? So that was one of the comments I'd noticed today, that struck a note with me. And then you've got some grandfathered licenses. You've got families that I would call them, I don't know any other term, but heritage licenses, that are falling into a whole nother level of details that they have to abide by and go by. And, this is a real cause for concern. So here we are, 3 days away from it opening. How does this affect you? Well, you tell me. You're in a community, you're in a fishing village. Money goes in, money comes out. In East Coast Canada, we all know the economy here. How is that going to affect where you live? Right? Something to think about. So that kind of is the basis for our conversation tonight, in one aspect with Mike Kelloway coming on at 8 o'clock. And again, please excuse me for my terminology. I have been very transparent that I have not known anything until a couple weeks ago deeply about the lobster industry. But chain management and numbers and this business model really intrigues me as to how these families have been going at this for every year for so long. Yeah. So I was trying to find something else to share with you tonight. It was some really good input from, it really broke it down kind of in easy terms for someone like myself to kind of understand why there's so many different zones concerned. Oh, the killer whales. So they just got a notice today. Was it today or yesterday? Josephine, you can correct me on that if you want. Today or yesterday, the killer whales are back. So the lobster fishermen, women. By the way, is there an actual verbiage for that? I'm just calling fishermen, assuming women, men. So the whales are back, so they have to use different colored twine so that if a whale is caught or entrapped, they can tell which area or zone it's trapped in. And how long can they continue to buy if big catches come in? Okay, Charlene Nash, right whales in the Gulf. That's right, Josephine. Charlene Nash. And how long can they continue to buy if big catches come in, or they're going to put us on a low quota system? Right. Okay, Josephine, thank you. I was unsure about the color-coded. Even at 500 pounds a day, 6 days a week is only 3,000 pounds per week. Put that on top of lower prices. Where will it leave us? Valid point, Charlene. This is really interesting to me. Like, what is going to happen? Okay, so back to the whales. The whales are back. You may or may not have seen it on the news. And again, Josephine, feel free to correct me, but the fishermen have to put twine around to make sure that the whales, are protected. So then, of course, there's going to be this. Well, if there's that much attention for the whales, the fishermen are, likening it to why are they not garnering enough interest in the industry, right? Another really interesting thing that I realized yesterday is this, and I really hope I don't offend anyone in what I'm about to say. What I've noticed in talking to, quite a few fishermen is that they left, schooling or didn't finish complete schooling at certain times to go into lobster fishing. And I really find that there's a lack of public awareness for just how, educated these fishermen are on a business model. I have learned so much in the past few weeks. This is hands-on. This might not be a university business model, but this is definitely a hands-on model that has been working for years in East Coast Canada, despite the obstacles that these fishermen have had to go through. So from one year to the next, they've had to go through and encounter different, obviously, bylaws, things they've had to be cognizant of and aware of, conservation, all these things, keeping in mind that a lot of the fishermen are older, they're not tech savvy, they're not on media. Cape Breton Island. I mean, I'm just talking about Cape Breton Island specifically because that's where I live. But if, you go through or go take a road trip, you're going to encounter different small villages and wharves and families where things have been passed on down over the years. So, okay. So Josephine, you know what I'm obviously getting at, right? Fishermen are all small businessmen, but because they wear rubber boots, they're looked at different than those in the fancy suits. Yeah, and so I don't know if I'd go that far to say that, Josephine. I know tons of people have respect for East Coast fishermen and Atlantic Canada and just living here in general. I mean, people all over the world would pay $1 million to live in East Coast Canada. It is like a dream life for a lot of people. We just don't realize. I think a lot of times we take for granted what we have here. I know myself personally, and I'm not going to get on talking about myself, but I know myself personally. I was out west. I left when I was 15 from Cape Breton. I went out west, the land of milk and honey. I got married. I was married for 17 years. I have 5 kids. I was a good friend. We're good friends and everything now to this day, but I was a truck driver out west, among many other things. It was the land of milk and honey. And I knew that moving back to Cape Breton, moving back to East Coast Canada was the quality of life I craved for my kids. Also, I'm an entrepreneur. So in some aspects, I get what you're saying, Josephine. I think sometimes, though, that we might sometimes have that mentality about ourselves or some negative, history about maybe something we've been through. But I really honestly believe that a lot of people have a lot of respect for, the fishermen out here and the business that they run, especially because it's so unpredictable one year to the next. So I just, anyway, in talking to a lot of fishermen, I realized, wow, they're persistent, even though they haven't had all the details. They're not tech savvy, but the communication, I found that, I'm going to admit, I found it like rather frustrating that to get an answer or to root through to some information that was accurate, I really had to do a lot of work to like pass through to speak to the right sources. So I'm really hoping that out of this, somehow maybe better communication is established between, different parties. And it'll be interesting to see, what it's done to me personally going through this and what it is doing. All of us are having to learn new skills. We're having to adapt to so many new things all at once. And it can be, I don't know about you, but it can be extremely overwhelming at the best of times. And I'm just speaking from, media perspective, right? Content. So anyway, we are getting ready to have Mike Kelloway. Now, I honestly don't know, how Ripple Effects works. We do not pre-record. This is what you see is what you get. It's not polished. It's not edited. It is live. And that is to reflect the transparency that we want at all times at Ripple Effects. But what we do, the only disclosure we do have, reasonable and relevant comments will be shown. We will not highlight or post derogatory or disrespectful comments. And I don't even think I need to go into that because everyone has been absolutely phenomenal the past few weeks while I've been navigating and learning so much myself, and also having on community leaders and we're nonpartisan. So when we have someone on, it does not reflect in any way our opinions on any matters. It's just we've appreciated having some accurate sources to go by. So we're looking forward to that tonight. Just want to scroll through so we recognize our viewers here. Charlene Nash Hunter. Hello, Josephine Kennedy. Hello, Leanne Young LeBlanc. Where are you watching from, Leanne? Hello, Darren LeBlanc. Wonder where you're watching from, Darren. Hello, Hilda Oakley Pittman. This is so great to see so many viewers on. So once again, how it works with Mike Kelloway is he is the local MP for the Canso Causeway area. And then Jaime Baptiste is for the Sydney Victoria. And we'll have Jaime on here fairly soon as well. We've had the mayor, CBRM, Cecil Clark on, and also Fire Chief Michael Seth. We've had just a plethora of people from Cape Breton Island that are phenomenal, that are taking real leadership roles in this. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for putting all political views aside and just coming to the table and talking about topics that concern all of us, especially right now, the seafood industry. Because if this falls through, we're going to notice, again, even if you're not a seafood eater, you're going to notice a real dent in the vibe of your community, in the flow of your community, the vibrancy, the financial status of your community. You're going to notice a dent. And that's unfortunately the way, things go. So coming to the table tonight, again, Mike doesn't necessarily have answers for everything that comes to the table, but he does take a copy of the show and he really puts forth a good effort in calling or responding back to anyone. So please feel free to engage tonight in the comments when Mike comes on. I'm just going to look for new comments here. What a beautiful day today. I don't know about you guys, but in my area, it is absolutely gorgeous. Darren LeBlanc, Florence. Okay, Florence is... where is Florence? I know where that is. Florence. I know where that is, Darren. I'm just trying to... Okay, Leanne, my husband is a lobster fisherman in Point Cody. I've got to give a shout out tonight. Do you know who I have to give a shout out to? I have to give a shout out to the wives, girlfriends, partners of lobster fishermen. And the reason I want to do that is not, to take some feminist role in this, because that is not my agenda to flaunt or promote anything. The reason I want to acknowledge that is, for the most part, when I've had to gather information or, ask how someone is doing, or if they want to add something or bring something to the documentary, the wives and girlfriends and partners, they have been phenomenal. The way they run the help run the business and be the support, obviously, ladies, I don't need to go on, but your support is critical and crucial, because a person can only do so much, obviously, especially if your partner is down there at the wharf, setting the gear up, getting everything ready. So a shout out to you, ladies that are standing by, come hell or high water, and have your heels dug in. I just want to give a shout out of gratitude and acknowledgement of your work. Okay. So I want to make sure I gave Mike the right invite here. Just give me a second. I'm just going to text him and make sure that I gave him the right link. YV3K, YV3K, YV3K6, QTWRR. Okay. Well, we should see him on shortly. So anyway, how was the weather in your area today? David, Donovan, Niels Harbor. Nice. Margie McNeil. Hi, Margie. Beautiful here in Sydney. Lovely. Would have been a lovely day in Sydney today. Darren LeBlanc, around the Little Brador area. Okay, nice, Darren. I have my good friend Mary DeVoe that has Jane's Cafe up there in Brador area. So, and Niels Harbor, Florence. Nice. So, folks, get your questions ready and stand by. I'm just going to pop off the screen here for just a moment to make sure that Mike... Oh, there he is. I see him. Thank God. Oh.
Hi.
You always give me that little breath of, oh dear, is he here? But yeah, you're here, so that's good. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
How's it going?
It's going okay.
I read a fabulous... Are you? Okay, I got to turn the volume up. I can't hear you. Hold on.
Okay, one second.
I heard a fabulous review today written about you.
Okay.
And it came from I just want to pull it up. I thought it was so fabulous that they did this. It came from North of Smoky.
Okay.
The Fishing Association, and they were giving you a shout out of gratitude for the copious amount of hours and work that you have put into navigating through this with everyone. So they just, I thought it was very nice to acknowledge that. Yes.
Yeah, we've been working quite a lot with that group and I think all the groups, all the fishing groups in the riding, pretty much on a daily basis for the past 6 weeks, and we pulled a couple of all-nighters there late last week with some folks in Ottawa to kind of give them an overview of the fishery, finance folks, finance policy people, to kind of pitch what we were recommending and explaining why. So it's a result of groups like North of Smoky and groups in 26B down in Harbour Boucher, Guysborough, up to Shetty Camp and the Glace Bay, Port Moria, Manitou area. We've met with so many. It's been quite the learning experience, and it continues. I just literally, one of the reasons why I got here late was because I was on the phone talking to some folks in Ottawa about some elements of measures that should be announced. I'm hoping very, 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 very soon now. But it's been nothing but a privilege to work with those men and women in the fishery.
Yeah. Yeah, I found it. It said, it was very nice. We've been working with Mike, and the conference calls and everything. I mean, Zoom is taking a lot for people to learn. Parliament, I mean, House of Commons, what was it, just last week that you guys did your first meeting?
Yeah, 299 people on Zoom. Yeah, it was fascinating. I absolutely,
right?
It was the second week. It was the second week of Zoom, and it's interesting because when you're there in person and you're in the chamber, there's a lot of theatrics. There's a lot of it's kind of like, depending on who you're watching, really good dinner theater or really bad dinner theater that you would wish would stop. And I would say in the case of Zoom, we've illustrated, I think, that the business of Parliament can go on, but in a different way. I mean, you're always never going to substitute the face-to-face aspects of it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I got the first session I watched, and the second session I put a question in that I think I might be asking tomorrow. So watch for that. I know if you're really, really starving for entertainment, watch the CPAC channel or go online and you'll wait for my question. But it is around the fishery, actually. So if I get to ask it, it will be around the fishery. So I mean, a lot of my time right now has been around a couple of areas: fishery, seniors, for sure, and also talking about the order in council with respect to the military style weapons. And talking to individuals about that. There's a fair amount of passion on both sides of the equation, and people reaching out to me, and me giving answers back. And sometimes people, I mean, and it's a free country. People are very passionate about the weapons that they have, and many of them have been passed down from generation or whatever the case may be. But it's also talking to individuals and saying, let's unpack what you've heard. And let's talk about what is. And so, and I'm not an expert on guns.
Right.
If somebody called on your show and said, "What about this?" Now, I'm not, but I have done a bit of research on it for both sides of the equation to be able to talk about that. So I mean, on the military style weapons, the fishery, seniors in particular, sole proprietorship is still a gap that I'm not happy with. I think we're all in agreement that has to be solved. So and that was another reason why I was on a little late. I was giving my 2 cents worth. I think there could be a show in Ottawa called Kelloway's 2 cents. And it's just because it's something that's coming up, and we have a lot of sole proprietorships in our riding. So yeah, those would be the top three. I mean, it's been 8 weeks. Since we've started looking and doing a deep dive on responding to COVID-19. We're over now 8 million people on CERB. I think it's 250,000 businesses that have accessed the wage subsidy, and almost the same number on the 2-year interest-free loan for small businesses. And then again, there are gaps, right? There are gaps with fishers. There are gaps with seasonal workers. And, I've taken the full court press along with other MPs to say, okay, tourism, we got to fill that. And here's what it is, because we've been talking to the tourism operators. Fisheries, here's where we need to go with fisheries. And everyone knows that I've been promoting ACOA, the monies that are going to ACOA, and that fishers can dock up
Yeah.
to those, and you just keep on hammering it, because I mean you have well over 300 MPs. I forget the number now. Yes, I forget the number of MPs at 330 something, and everybody is rightly so like trying to look after their own constituents. There's national interest and there's regional interest. But then there's like specific ones, like regionally it would be fishery. I mean, this is our oil sector. I mean, it's not just the fishers,
Right.
it's not the processors. It's the multiplier effect in terms of other businesses that are a part of it. And I take that very seriously. I got to tell you, I take it very, very seriously that that we do everything we can for this industry, an industry that has given many of us what we have today, and is not just an industry. You know, it's a fabric of Atlantic culture. How many people will go off, not now, but maybe distance themselves away from the harbor to watch the boats go out in the car? There'll be quite a few, right? So it's part of who we are, and we got to do everything we can. But those, Rebecca, those would be the three, eh? And the three that would be top of mind. There's no question. Fisheries, seniors, probably 1 and 2, and then individual. Requests that are important. I mean, my office is triaging a lot of CERB, like making sure people get online, making sure people apply the right way, and so forth and so on.
Yeah. And I noticed lately, you've been doing a lot of interviews and meeting with people, which is fabulous. You've been sharing that with the public, you know, the media, which, you know, I got to tune in with the Cancer Society, watching you talk to them, and different groups. So it's been really great to see this sort of, I don't know if you want to call it transparency, but it's been something really unique come of this situation, is being able to view and take part in it. Let's talk, Mike, for a minute about wage top eligibility. And how is that determined? You know, as it stands right now, the province is only giving it to those who work under the Department of Health and Wellness. And not under the Department of Community Services. So if you can somehow give us a little bit of information on that.
Sure. Just plugging in my computer. Little technical difficulty. It's a great question, because when you look at health, you know, health is primarily, in most cases, a provincial responsibility in how it's administered. So what the federal government has done, in cooperation with all the provinces and territories, is provide $3 billion of federal funds to top up what the provinces are going to put in for essential workers. Now, this is where talking to constituents is very, very important. So we're getting those emails too about, you know, why are the feds not, you know, looking at, you know, groups in this part of healthcare and this part of healthcare, which are all exceptionally valid, and I agree with. But it's really the provincial government that determines what they're going to do with that money, and what they're going to deem as essential skills. Now, going to your MP is important, because I can pass that on to a Derek Mumbercat or a Jeff McClellan or a Randy Delory or whoever is on the government side that I can get a hold of to say, here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing also, you know, that among the First Nations community, even though it's a little differently structured between the federal government and First Nations communities, but they're looking at aspects of that as well, and different healthcare providers that are not necessarily within the Nova Scotia Health Authority realm. So what I say is, for constituents to do what I'm doing, I'm reaching out to Derek and Jeff to say, I know I've got a cluster of emails that are talking about the need to look at, this is hypothetical, but people that maybe work at a Breton Ability or some other group, right, that are essential skill workers, and they're looking at, you know, can they be somehow make the case to receive that top up? Excuse me. So on the conduit on that side, but when it comes down to it, the federal government has provided the money. It's kind of like almost like the health transfers themselves. When we create a budget, and we work within the Canada Healthcare Act, you know, we look after a few elements of healthcare for the nation, but when it comes to the administration of healthcare itself, that's the province. So we've given $3 billion to all the provinces to say, to dock up to what the provinces are going to give, to dole that out to the appropriate groups. It is the province who determines the definition of essential skills at this time. So my advice to the constituents out there would be no different than the advice that I give my staff and give myself. When we get those emails, and we've been getting them, and they've been very cordial, very two-way communication, good conversation online, is to make sure that the people in the province, the appropriate people, get it. And I would say the same for those that are out there watching or listening, is to make sure that you have your voice heard by reaching out to your MLA to talk about your ideas as they go, because I would assume that the provincial government is similar in the federal government in this respect. When we've put out measures to help Canadians, if you look at a lot of them, they've been modified as we've gone, and the reason why is the people have influenced the MPs. The MPs then go to cabinet and say, here's a different spin on it. Let me tell you about it. It's like the conversation I had with a group of finance people around the 10%. And I said, Mike Kelloway here from Cape Breton, you don't know who I am. You know I'm an MP, but give me 20 minutes of your time to talk to you about why 10% wage subsidy is not good and we need to go higher.
Yeah. Right.
So those are the differences there, Rebecca. And
exactly. Yeah. No, go ahead. There's a
bit of a delay
lag in our communication with the Wi-Fi.
No worries. By the way, we're working on that as well. In terms of broadband and cell phone coverage, there'll be some news to come on that. But no, what I was going to say is that.
Well, now that's exciting news.
I was talking to some, not to get off track, but I was talking to some local companies in and around broadband and cell phone coverage, and talking to the Minister of Economic Development, who is focusing solely right now at the moment on rural broadband. So she knows Cape Breton Council very well by now. Trust me. But that is the difference, and I can understand why people listen. There's so much going on right now in life, in everyday life, in your personal life, in community, in the country, and the world. And so when information is coming out, it can be very confusing and very overwhelming, all the information that we're getting, including myself. I mean, I get briefings probably at 6 in the morning, and they're probably about 6 pages long, and they're detailed, and my job is to know that inside and out for that day and beyond that day. So a lot of things can get overwhelming in terms of information, but when it comes to this item, my advice again is that, well, first I'll say again, let's go back to, and then we can go on to your next topic or whatever you want to talk about. But bottom line is this: the provincial government administers the money. They determine the criteria by which the money will be spent and on whom. The federal government has provided the money to all the provinces to say, we believe that it's absolutely, pardon the pun, essential that this money go into the hands of essential workers. The provinces then administer that money. But I don't get a pass on that, and here's why. I have an opinion on that. And so I've let my MLAs know, and I suggest that people do the same, because again, I've seen firsthand the power of community, the power of very similar voices talking, communicating at the same time.
Yeah, and I've noticed in getting to know you, Mike, that you've put forth quite a concerted effort even before COVID in community engagement, and that's really paramount to staying in touch and keeping a pulse on what. I mean, Cape Breton, let alone Cape Breton, is unique, but rural Canada is unique. And to have an an MP that's on top of things, keeping a pulse on, the different factors that go into everything is it's pretty great to have you on our show on Monday nights. Let's just say that, because I'm noticing I'm getting not just your opinion, but I'm getting a real wide variety of what everyone is going through and thinking.
Well, you know what? I think it's so important that, again, people can reach out to their MP through a platform like this, and then reach out to you to ask questions, or reach out to me, in my office. The fact of the matter is that there's going to be some elements that people will say, Mike, I disagree with the government on this, but I like that. Or, Mike, I'd like to talk to you about my thoughts on essential workers. I know it's provincially administered, but I want to talk to you about it. Guess what? I'm there to talk to you about it. And also
Mhm.
if you disagree with something that I'm doing, I'm there to talk about that as well, and to listen. We may
Mhm.
agree to
Yeah.
disagree, but oftentimes I find that you can find the art of the possible in most things. You go into a conversation a lot of times. Let's face it, today's world, we go in with a lot of preordained thoughts about people, issues, and challenges. We all do. I do. But it's sitting down and getting the other side of the
Mhm.
coin, and then either empathizing with it, seeing different points of view, or empathizing but disagreeing, and that's fine too. And
Mhm.
that's part of
Mhm.
democracy. But in a rural area like this, we started off in January, perfect time to start the uh, the uh, the roaming office. It started to snow, hail, and then of course
Mhm.
COVID happened.
Mhm.
But we got in about 12 roaming offices, and they were all exceptionally well attended. Maybe except one, but that was for other reasons, weather. But
Mhm.
but the appreciation that people had, regardless of politics, it's like, oh, you're coming to my community to listen
Mhm.
to our challenges or my
Mhm.
challenges, which got me thinking. There's I'm hoping that at some point maybe we can sit down and talk about this. But how do we reach? How do we use these platforms to look at different communities and try to get a kind of community lens on, like town halls or things like that? I think it's really, really cool. So Richmond County, Inverness County, Guysborough County, Antigonish County. How do
Mhm.
we use this platform and the ways that it was intended, like right here, right now? But so I mean, I'm privileged. I mean, most of my riding is rural. Most of my riding is
Mhm.
predominantly small business. Most of my riding, all of my riding, not most of it, has a passion for community the likes I have not seen. And I've been in this community all my life. I'm almost 50.
Mhm.
This is a great place to live. You talked
Yeah.
about it. You're out west. You want to come home. You want to raise your children here, as many do. You're making a go for it as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
You're taking chances, and that's wonderful.
Mhm.
And again, it's just a privilege. It's a privilege to work my tail off for people who I think deserve it. Why do they deserve it? Because they're good living people.
Mhm.
The hunters, for example. We talked about
Mhm.
gun control. My father was a hunter. He still has a 10 gauge. He passed away in
Yeah.
2010, 2012, but he has a 10 gauge and a 12 gauge in the basement. And, he used to hunt. Many of my friends hunt. They're great people and who will be able to continue to hunt, and pursue sport and hunting. But there are things that are changing in society. And we need to not just embrace that, but make sure that we're following through on what's best for all Canadians. And I'm pro hunting. I'm pro gun safety. But I'm also looking at those military style weapons and saying that I think Bill Blair and cabinet and the government had to make a choice, and in terms of following through on some of their policies and platform promises. And there's a lot of misinformation out there too. I've heard we're banning toy guns.
Mhm.
No, I've heard we're banning 10 gauge
Yeah.
shotguns, rifles for hunting. No, 12 gauge. No. But the
Mhm.
military style weapons that were designed for the military, quite frankly, is what the government has decided to do.
Yeah.
And I have some folks that have provided their insight to me via different platforms. And I mean, I'm super open and talking to them and listening to them and getting their points of view. I hope one thing
Mhm.
is for certain, or two things are for certain, is that I'm working as hard as I can, and I care.
Mhm.
That's the second one, and that I'm accessible.
Mhm.
That's three. I'm accessible, and
Mhm.
so let's focus on how do we make things better. Let's focus on how we make our community better, and that's coming together on all sides of the equation. Saying how do we
Yeah.
stop name calling and the background white noise of things, and let's look at how do we work together. That's the key thing. I'm interested in people who want to work together, and I'm also interested in people who have a counter view than me. But let's sit down and talk, and let's keep the vitriol to a low level.
So, in just closing here, I know we had a lot of folks wondering if there was going to be announcements tonight about the federal aid package coming, and any details. And so, Mike, and we know that we're so close to finding out some information. But do you want to give us any updates or any idea that you might have concerning this? Obviously, the white elephant in the room, I like to call it.
Oh, the fishery. Yeah. Again, I can. Here's what I can say, and it's what I know at the moment. I've over the past 3 weeks in particular, and last week, my staff in particular, who I am immensely proud of. I think they're the smartest. They're the smartest people in the room when I'm in it, and because they're incredibly smart. They at my request worked pretty diligently Wednesday and Thursday of last week, sitting down where measures are, where they're at right now with finance, with members of finance, to go through exactly every element of things like how do many harvesters get paid, and how that goes about. So there was I wouldn't say there's an education because that would be wrong, and it would be a bit pompous of me. But we were providing a lens by which I think they saw things clearer after we finished our 2-day review of key things. So let me just say this. A couple of things that we've put forward. And again, I'll stress, we put forward as an office and as a constituency, listening to every fisher out there. One is we've said as an office, we need support for fishers when it comes to extension of CERB or extension of EI for health or economic reasons. We've said, secondly, that we need to make sure that the fishers have access to the wage subsidy, and we've provided recommendations on how that would work because many can't fit the criteria that we have now. Thirdly, is around the interest-free loan, the $40,000. And for many reasons that I won't get into at the moment, but many fishers would understand, many do not fit that criteria. So we've made recommendations and have connected ACOA in our recommendations to finance on how that would work. And thirdly, we need to have some supports in place. This is our office again. Supports in place to help fishers should, and that's a big if, should the market take a bit of a nosedive or kind of falter a bit in terms of the market price for lobster. So those 4 things are essential in our recommendations. So where do we bring that? Where does Mike Kelloway and his office bring that initially? So over the past 4 weeks, but in particular in the past 3, I've talked about this in National Caucus, and I've sent a letter to the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of ACOA, the Minister for Employment and Human Resources, and there's another minister that I sent it to that fails me right now. So that was a very detailed letter and recommendations. I just don't like talking about the problems. I like to say here are the solutions, or potential solutions, and let's talk about them. And then, of course, last week, with the Minister of Finance office, by the way, at the request of the Minister of Finance's office, they reached out to our office and said, can you help us here? And we said, you say the word, we're there. And so we spent a fair amount of time going through the recommendations. Now, what does this mean? This doesn't mean that I have an inside track, because there's a thing called cabinet confidentiality. But I can tell you that we've been hammering it home on the importance of these measures. Now, we'll see what comes from it. Now, here's the deal. And I'm not much of a poker player. Look at me. I'm not much of a poker player. This is my face. I'm sorry. But when it comes down to it.
Are you saying that you can't fib, Mike?
No, here's my wife tells me this, or my wife, before we got married, she said, I can tell when you lie. And I said, how? Well, what's my sign? And she said, you look up like this. So I kind of do it, I guess. I didn't realize I do that. So if I do this, guys, everybody on the show, he's full of crap. That Kelloway is full of crap, I tells you. But I can tell you this. I would have very much liked for this announcement or these measures to have come out 2 weeks ago. And I can tell you, and I can tell you and the viewers this. I've expressed that very clearly. Now, my understanding is that, well, here's the deal. The season is May 15th.
Yeah.
It's now May 11th. And as
3 days.
So I said, as I said to people on a conference call today, pretty openly and candidly, because I can't be that way.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's make this happen now. Okay. Mm-hmm. We need to make it happen. So, so I'm with you now. I'm in that kind of, I guess, that space right now where I think we've done what we can do as an office. We presented the case hard, strong, sound facts, lots of collaboration in the community, but also hitting the key people over and over again, and making those relationships happen with those people, but presenting the facts, because for me, it's about facts, and it's facts with passion and empathy, right? I mean, men and women are out there putting their life on the line, and they are essential workers. They're putting their life on the line. They're putting their life on the line for us. It's a way of life. It's a business, but it's our business. It's Atlantic Canadians' business. And I take that very, very personally. Yeah.
No, you do, Mike. And I've really appreciated it. And I've got to say another shout out to Natasha, your admin, your staff. They've been phenomenal. Like whenever I've needed a question answered or had to go for something on behalf of someone else, they've been very prompt in getting back. So
thank you.
I'm not so sure in a larger area we would have that ability to be in direct contact with the MP as much as we have in a rural area. So there's something to be said about that.
That's very kind. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Mike. And I know we've been talking and the updates are coming, said to come very soon. I think I did tell the viewers, and I think I shared this with you, Mike. I did get a text from Jane Deeks, which is the spokesperson for the Minister Bernadette Jordan.
Yes.
It's hi, Rebecca. Thanks for reaching out again. The minister won't be available today, but I'll be in touch as soon as we can do the show. We want to do it, and I will be in touch as soon as we can. They're looking forward to the opportunity. So I really appreciated that text back, and
nice.
We'll look forward to hearing from yourself and this as we go. There's nothing a whole lot more that can be said until we find out. And we do, as Mike said, he is cognizant of how apprehensive the fishermen are with 3 days away starting. And all of us are definitely have the fishermen in mind right now.
Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us tonight. And we look forward to next Monday at the same time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. Have a great night, okay?
You as well. And Natasha, if you're watching up there, please feel free to put Mike's link there in the comments so that viewers can directly contact him as well. Thank you, viewers. And stay tuned next for our show with Sean O'Connell, which is live. Sean does a show which is live music with musicians around Atlantic Canada. And I'm not quite sure who he has on tonight, but we also have Dylan DeVoe coming up this Thursday with Pretty Archies from Sydney. So extremely talented people they're bringing on, and also amateur grassroots musicians that you possibly know in your own neighborhood. So please stay tuned, coming up at 9 o'clock. Thank you again, viewers, for watching. We really appreciate your support, your like, your share, your hashtag replay. We really appreciate it. Thank you and have a good evening. This broadcast is officially over.